My name is Charles Barrett, and I serve as interim president of Geneva Reformed Seminary, and I teach all the church history classes and systematic theology. So we cover early Christianity, medieval Christianity, Reformation Christianity, and modern Christianity. And for systematic, we have 6 heads of theology that we go through. We deal with theology proper, which addresses the doctrine of God, and then we look at anthropology, which addresses the doctrine of man, where we also cover issues of the fall and sin. Then we go to Christology and study Jesus Christ, the only mediator of God's elect, who is the only redeemer for man and his fallen state. Then we address soteriology, where we cover all of the benefits and blessings of redemption, justification, adoption, sanctification, and glorification. After soteriology, we study ecclesiology, which is the doctrine of the church. And then the final class is eschatology, where we study the end times. Other capacities at the seminary, we deal with the schedule of classes, oversee the library, and also deal with credits and what students need and any kind of correspondence with other institutions. The subject of church history is sometimes the area of seminary education that needs the most justification. A lot of times church history doesn't have maybe an immediate practical benefit to the ministry that other classes such as systematic theology and languages have. However, church history is important to a pastor because it broadens out their perspective. It gives to them a bird's eye view of how Christ has built his church. He promised in Matthew 16 to build his church. In many ways, church history is the viewing of that, seeing how Christ has promised to build his church. And over the generations in church history, you see many things that are encouraging, you see many things that are discouraging, and when you look at that, there are many lessons that can be learned, how we interact with others, how we see how the church has historically understood particular doctrines. And in many ways, when we do ministry today, we don't often find things that are new. An awareness of church history can give insight and wisdom in how to better address current trends and situations. All right, one of the burdens of the seminary is to encourage the students to see the practical ramifications of everything that we do in the classroom. One author has described what a minister is to do in the terms of working between two worlds, taking what is true of the Bible world, or for the sake of church history, what is true in that world, and bringing it to bear in the world in which we live. And so, whether it's church history or systematic theology, the students are seeking to understand more about God and more about people and how to interact with them. And so for a student, after he graduates, he goes on his internship, having some kind of framework and understanding of how people act, how people have acted throughout history, and lessons of ways in which they should be handled and lessons in ways in which they should not be handled is a nice reminder. For example, you look at something like the Reformation, and sometimes in our generation, students want to see things changed immediately. And one thing that we can learn from Martin Luther is that when you're seeking to reform or to change, you can do it too quickly and too soon. You have to bring about change in a way that is slow, that takes people's comfort into account, and you don't want to do too much. When Luther was in prison or held captive, he heard reports that there was a reformer in Wittenberg who was engaging in reform too quickly, and a lot of people were being concerned with the direction of things, and their faith was even being shaken. And so he went back there and he reminded the reformers that you need to teach patiently. And so that's one example in how church history could be valuable for a young student going out to the ministry with hopes of changing the church, changing the world. You don't want to do things too quickly with disregard to how people might respond to that. In many ways, I never planned on being a teacher at a seminary like Geneva, and it was never my plan to be in any kind of administration role. But God's providence has led and orchestrated otherwise. And while I was in seminary, I didn't really know what to do, so I continued my education and trusted the Lord to lead and to guide. My initial burden was to go to the mission field and teach maybe on a Bible institute there, but never intended on remaining in America or in the Free Church denominational seminary. But in God's providence, He led me here, and I can look back now and see how my education that I had the privilege to have was formative in my calling now. And being in the classroom, I've learned more and my own understanding of Scripture and God and the church. And so in many ways, being a teacher has been more formative to what I do than actually anything prior to that. So God has used, in many ways, the current ministry to, I trust and pray, to enable me to be more effective in the classroom.